And welcome, everybody. Hello. Nice to see you. Welcome back to the Wellness Policy for the 50th time. Wow. This is a monumental, perhaps the biggest edition of the Wellness Policy ever, because we're celebrating a nice round number. It is the number 50. Not many podcasts make it to this milestone. So we have, and we're great. So thank you very much, Jordan and Neal Flanagan. Welcome back to the 50th edition.
If there's anything I know about you, Wai, you love big round numbers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
It's the one thing we associate with Wai, this love of numbers.
Yeah.
Not the 50th anniversary, by the way.
So that's next month.
Yeah, it's coming.
So. Sorry, not even anniversary.
It's not even an anniversary at all, yeah. But to hell with SNL 50, this is the big one.
Yes, all right.
But wait, what an achievement. We started this over 5 years ago, I believe. Or maybe not, I don't know. This was a pandemic baby, we could say. You've had numerous babies since then.
Sure, yeah.
And the show has certainly evolved over time. It kind of started like a book club. And we brought Mr. Book Club himself, Neal, to join us for the ride that is the Wellness Policy.
Yeah, now we don't read at all, you and I, Jordan, and Neal has kind of stolen our book club idea for a show with John Pollock. He's just, it's okay. That's fine. That's fine. But I don't know, like, should we be reflecting on the past 50th episodes? We really have nothing planned for this.
What are our top? How would you rank all 50 of them?
Well, okay, that's
in order.
What's the
worst? Gotten worse.
No. What would you say, Wai, is the worst episode?
I don't know. I don't
49. Nothing comes to mind where, like 45 minutes in, you're thinking to yourself, "Why the fuck did I commit to this?"
Could be this one, man.
Could be.
I'm joking.
I can't think of any actively bad ones. Can you?
I'll be honest. It's not something I even worry about that much that I keep in my head. Are there any bad ones that really stand out?
I can remember one that wasn't a bad episode, but it very nearly fell off the rails.
Oh, yes.
We were reviewing the a movie. I forget the name of the documentary. It's about sort of queer culture in wrestling.
Right.
It was for June one year when it was Pride Month.
Yeah.
And it was a good episode, but both of you were pretty sick, I think was the situation, and barely made it through. I think you very nearly needed to duck out, Jordan. And so did you, which would have left me all on my own.
That was episode 17, Queer Identity in Wrestling with Out in the Rings Rye Levy.
However, I should say a 10 out of 10 guest. That
episode. Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, so not a bad show because of the content, but because of our physical states.
Yeah, and wait, there was one not too long ago. You ended up joining us from a library, like public Wi-Fi.
I was at a cafe. That's right.
Yeah,
you were talking about environmental issues with Jesse from the Six.
Yeah.
But
so
again,
even in we've done a lot. We've covered a lot. 50 episodes.
Well, were there any that were bad due to content, not due to like those sort of external factors?
I don't think so. Like just immediate impression. I don't think I've ever finished. I know this for a fact. I've never finished one of these episodes and thought that wasn't a good use of my time today.
Cool, that's good. All right, good. Well, it sounds like they've all been really good episodes, and I have no reason to think that this one won't be either, because it's a very special one. We are here to talk about ourselves, which is kind of what this show has sort of like devolved into, like just a show not even so much about topics about wellness, but just each other.
Well, if I may,
I like you said devolved instead of evolved.
I picked up on that as well, Neal. If I may, for me, the spirit of the show, even from episode 1, at least my intent wasn't necessarily the topic at hand, or certainly it wasn't a book of the month. It was a type of conversation, a type of community building, whether that was between you and I initially, Wai, but then oftentimes people that call in, or 5 years of an active Discord channel for the wellness policy specifically. What I mean by the intent of the conversation is that these aren't necessarily surface level conversations, but they also don't always have to be serious, or like the subject doesn't have to carry much weight. It can be sometimes light and fun, sometimes even absurd, but there's an intentionality of being here together, if you kind of know what I mean by that. And part of the reason why that's important for me is because I sometimes in my own life desire more of that, but more so a lot of the people that I work with professionally often say to me that the types of conversations they have with me feel incredibly novel and unfamiliar to them. And I think part of what they mean is that they typically don't engage with a certain level of presence and a certain level of inquiry and a certain level of depth when they're just chatting up their friends or their coworkers. So again, to me, that is the spirit of the wellness policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say maybe like the topics were perhaps a crutch for us to get together. And now that we maybe have built a certain rapport, not just with each other, but with the audience, we could just turn the mics on and perhaps achieve that. So
I think always, a really good example of that was the personality tests episode where we were doing I forget what they're called, but you wind up with 4 letters at the end of it.
No, I was thinking Money in the Bank. MIBT?
Something like that.
Whatever.
Myers-Briggs, MB something. I will say that test dragged on a bit long for me.
It did, but in the end, I think like we just got to talking about each
MBTI.
Other. Yeah.
Number 39. Yeah.
So in that sense, it was a good example of the topic being a crutch.
Yeah, that was a bad. Really, so that was a bad episode. Don't listen to that.
No, it turned out to be good because I think we were just talking about how messy my workspace is, things like that. And digging into side conversations, which were more interesting than the actual answers to the quiz.
Just while we're still at the jump, as a teaser, and before there's got to be at least one person listening, whether live or in the future right now, thinking, I don't know where this show's going. Maybe I'm gonna tune into the next podcast on my feed. We are going to be talking about Neal joining Tinder for the first time, so I'm just teeing that up. I've been floating that topic to a handful of people, and 10 out of 10 times I've heard, oh fuck, I want to hear that. So I'm just saying we're meandering and we're not quite sure where we're going right now, but at some point this man, our man, Neal has joined Tinder. We will get to that later in the program, as they say.
That's the hook of this particular episode. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but I mean, we could just get to that shortly. But before I do that, I want to again remind people that this is a call-in show. So look for the link in the show description right now, or wherever you find a link for this particular show, and call in. And at some point during the next hour or so, we will talk to you. So join the wellness policy. I'll even drop the link right now into the chat room. So if those of you
want to swap Tinder experiences, anyone?
Ooh,
I'm all
like
for that.
That sounds great.
I will say, when I think back to favorite episodes, I really did enjoy the dating episode we did years ago.
Yeah.
We had a professional dating expert on, and Braden Harrington joined us as well from memory. And he's making lunch right now, but he's also
who's also a professional dating expert.
He has a girlfriend. So
so success.
Yeah. New guitar way, or just new in the room?
Oh, it's been here for since the last time.
Didn't you? I thought you had a bass.
Oh yeah. Switched it at some point. Yeah, no, it's old. It's not new. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 6 strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Yeah. As opposed to like 12, I guess.
Or 7. I have friends that play 7-string guitar. Yeah. You don't have friends in Corn?
No, not that fancy. All right. You teed it up. I think we've made people wait long enough. We kind of discussed this at the beginning of the year when talking about like our goals and things like that. And Neal very boldly described a desire to want to get back into the game after a bit of a layoff, right?
Yeah, that's
so. So what's the update, Neal? We're in May right now.
Yeah, probably a little behind where I would have wanted to be when I brought the subject up, putting it mildly. But I think I first broached it publicly on this Christmas show, out of all things. It was completely unplanned. I think we were just sort of talking about the year ahead. And I had discussed it as something as a goal that I have not dated actively for years at this point. And during that time, I had a bad relationship, which kind of soured me on the whole idea. That was one factor. A second factor was that I was aging out of the way I had met people, which was sort of the nightlife, the bar sort of scene, going out at weekends and sort of seeing who you might meet up with, and often with a bunch of friends who are now just too busy at weekends with their kids and things like that. So that was gone. And I didn't really know how to do it, what to do. And so it was a goal for this year to just try and get back into it. And like I said, kind of happy in the bachelor lifestyle, and I still may well end up in that space. And if that happens, then nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I thought I owe it to myself to give this a go. So a few false starts along the way with platforms. First of all, I thought, okay, where my people, for any new listeners, I'm a gay man, so my Jordan's shocked. He's never heard this before.
Yeah, I got a shot.
I thought, okay, Grindr seems to be like, Tinder for gay guys. So we'll try that. It's not, by the way, anyone who's unfamiliar. It's incredibly sexualized. It's very geared to hookups. And it's also like people can contact you without, unbidden, without matching and stuff. And I hated it. I was on it for 2 or 3 days. You also get like profile pictures, which are just like people in tidy whities and stuff. And I hate this. This is not at all what I'm looking for. I'm not going to find a friend on this.
Good that it's there in case you do. That is what you want? But that's all.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, all power to anybody who's active on there and using it in the way it seems to be intended for. But that's not really what I was looking for. So I just deleted my account, deleted that app. Then I don't want to make this a whole like lecture, but I was sort of like at a bit of a loss of, well, where do I go? And one of in Europe, at least in the UK, certainly in Ireland, eHarmony advertised very heavily over here. And a lot of their ads seem to be geared towards like 2 women together or 2 men together finding each other. And I thought, okay, I know it's kind of old school, these websites. Let's try that. And this is so funny because I was on it was funny at the time, a locational joke. You had to be there. But Jordan was on the call with me when I was going through this sign-up process, which is endless. It takes at least half an hour. It's a pseudo psychological exam. Like it shows you 3 homes, for example. Which one are you most drawn to? And then patterns. Which one are you most drawn to? I'm now firmly of the belief that it's pseudoscience to make you think you're being really assessed for a tremendous match at the end of all of this, process. Then you get to the end, and you've got to pay to get the full experience, but it gives you sort of matches that are blurred out faces. It has 3 matches, and it sort of gives you like 100-mile radius, which in my case sort of stretches to Scotland, where there's a body of water in between, me and them. Someone in Dublin, I think nobody local. And it's like, okay, well, that was a complete waste of time. And anyway, I'll try to be a bit briefer from this point on.
I mean, just the knowledge that just even the matches would be so far away. It was enough to turn you away. Like, what if the matches were local? Would you have paid for the full results?
I don't think so. Not with that number. If you're getting like less than half a dozen, like even candidates at that point, I was sort of like, what's going on? I sort of got in my.
I'm doing market research for eHarmony to see what they could do to improve their business. That's all.
Yeah, I do feel that if you lived in a big metropolitan area like London, Manchester, Birmingham, in England, maybe even Glasgow or somewhere like that, you might be better off. But my radius included Dublin, which is a proper European capital city, and like there was nobody there. So I think their advertising is somewhat I don't know if it's misleading. Maybe they're trying to attract more same-sex sort of clientele. But anyway, I got in my head at this point about, right, I'm of a certain age. I'm in a minority status. Like if there's maybe rough kind of numbering, maybe 5% of the population, something like that, maybe a little bit more, maybe a bit less, but around that. I'm getting older. Maybe I'm stuck with, a very small pool to fish in, sort of. But anyway, I finally got around to Tinder, and this was just a mindset thing. I always thought Tinder was the straight people's app. I knew it was the biggest dating app because that's the story of a lot of my friends, people I know have met long-term, even spouses through Tinder. And I just was never hearing real life stories of same-sex couples who had met through Tinder.
Because your assumption was Grindr cornered that market.
I felt so at the beginning, yeah. But I'm speaking as a geezer at this stage. I'm kind of older, and I sort of just had never even downloaded Tinder because I thought that's what it's for. It's for straight people to meet. But as it turns out, as the biggest app, it attracts a huge number of people. And one of the first questions they ask are, what are you looking for in that regard? Like, are you a straight person? Are you bisexual? Are you a guy looking for a guy? Are you a girl looking for a girl? What? It's one of the first things that in the onboarding process. So that was cool. So I'll try that. Then, you enter your some basic information, including your age and where you are and what your sort of age range would be. So I sort of entered something I felt was reasonable on that score. And then, like, Jordan, you gave me a tip at this point, which was, sorry, this is my, get your mind out of the gutter, Neil. You give me a tip, just a tip, which was,
stop projecting.
I know, there's projection. I do have, I'm not above like just some gutter humor, but which was this: set up your profile, get it out there, put some pictures up. You don't need to have like professionally taken photographs or anything like that. Just get it out there. Then shut down the app for a day or two. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And when I was very disciplined about it as well. No curiosity. I tucked it away in sort of page 3 of a folder on my phone. And when I opened it on the Monday, it was like 2 or 3 days later, let a weekend pass, there were, I think, 27 likes or something. Damn. And that was like a massive kind of, oh, right, okay. There are people out there. And the sort of reason in my mind then started thinking, okay, well, but that makes sense in a way, because although I'm in a minority group, I guess, I'm also in an age group where other guys in the same boat as me aren't necessarily going to the Kremlin, which is like a big Belfast gay club, anymore, like I used to in my 20s and early 30s. So they're looking for people. And how do they look for people? Then they look for people on the apps and things like that. So I'd made some matches and, to bring you up to speed, I've had 2 coffee dates at this point. And and the coffee date was the big goal. I don't know if you guys remember this. That was kind of like where I would like milestone where I wanted to get to,
If I may stop you, Neal.
Please.
I applaud.
Please stop me.
I applaud because it's worth the applause. You are someone, and we talk, and we've been talking about this personally. You are someone who has not dated in a long time, we could say. And you certainly have never engaged with online dating. I first got on Tinder about a decade ago. For me personally, and at the time, I don't know, I was in my like mid to late 20s. I guess more like late 20s. I felt kind of old for it. And this was a decade ago. For me, the online dating thing was intimidating in large part because it was unfamiliar to me. All I had known as far as like courtship and asking people out and dating was just doing it in person. And also there is this, at least for me, this vulnerability of it's public. Like people might see you on here. And there's a thing, at least for me, of like being single and presenting that publicly, like it felt kind of vulnerable. Like I wanted to avoid perhaps like negative judgment. So all that to be said, dating in and of itself is entirely vulnerable. You don't know what's going to happen next. There is great expectation for rejection to be part of the experience. So for you to have not done this for a while, for you to do it for the first time on an online platform, and now to get over the initial hump of meeting a human in person, to sit down, context of a date, enjoy some coffee, chat it up, and then to do it again with someone else. So now you're starting to normalize that this is a thing that you do. Like that is a tremendous success from my perspective. And again, worth applause. And I appreciate you sharing this publicly because I have to imagine there's someone listening or watching this that is resonating with some of what's being discussed, maybe some of the fear or resistance around dating in general, or using something like Tinder. But if not dating specifically, something else that just there's some hunger or some desire from within us to experience something, but getting over the initial hump of getting onto the field, that can be challenging. Yeah. And going from 0 to 1 often is the most challenging part. You've already smashed that, and now you're someone who does online dating, period. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I own that, and I think, I feel a sense of achievement through it, because for the longest time, and you know to this probably more than most, Jordan, more than anyone maybe, that I was setting up a lot of barriers to entry for myself, probably subconsciously on this. Like I feel like I'm not really happy with the photographs that are on my camera roll. Maybe I should get some pictures taken, by at least a friend who's a good amateur, or even a professional. And I still might do that. I can multi-purpose them. I can use them for work, for my Microsoft Teams profile and things like that. But I was setting these things up as I can't do it until I've done this. And, I've got to really think about what I write in the profile and stuff like that. And you were encouraging me now, just do it, just get on with it, and
good enough is good enough oftentimes.
Yeah. And so it is. So what was it? Greg from Succession said, so it is, so it shall be. So it has turned out, it's, and I feel it's been a success so far. It doesn't hurt that the first coffee date was very pleasant experience. Mm-hmm. Wasn't an instant spark, wasn't like I hadn't met my soulmate on the first try, but a very enjoyable hangout.
Is it possible he's listening right now?
Let's just call him Project Epsilon. I don't want to name and shame people. Makes no sense. But I suppose it is possible, because I will, like, one little aside here is that in my profile, only your first name generally appears on your Tinder profile, but you've got your name and it's got some pictures, and it's got some details that you have put there, and sort of I've sort of said what I am and what I do. And these days, I know it's been so long since you've used it, Jordan, that it now gives you some prompts, like sort of a fully grown up butt, and then you fill in like a little detail. So there's some little prompts there for sort of just things that people can hang on to. And
I feel like we could probably scan faces by this point and probably get everything. So don't worry, Neil. He's probably hosting his own wellness podcast on YouTube simultaneously, talking about his experience.
Could be.
It's fine. We balance.
But anyway, one of the things I said that I got into podcasting in my 40s, was just, I thought it's an interesting thing to say. And I mentioned post-wrestling. I mentioned post-wrestling because I thought, like, my name's kind of out there anyway, in a sense. I'm not in any way, shape, or form famous, but you can find me online. I use my real name on social media. I use my real photograph on social media. At this point in my life, I don't feel like I need to be anonymous. So I said, look, if you're curious, you can find me, I bet. You
are the top result for Neal Flanagan's on Google, at least for me.
Well, do you know what? I have discovered that my name, both of my names, particularly the first one, is normally spelled with an I rather than Neal, which is my spelling. And Flanagan's can be spelled with double N's in the middle, with an I, with an H after the G. It can be spelled in multiple ways. And my little combination has meant that I can get my name as a handle on most, like on Blue Sky, on Twitter. My Gmail is, oh God, I'm going to get emails now, but it's just my name. I don't have to do underscores and things like that. So I've managed to, I seem to have an unusual combination of names.
There is a Neal Flanagan Fishing who has more followers than you on Instagram. So
yes, the fishing guy, and there's also a religious writer who there's the fishing guy, and there's a guy who writes books about monks and stuff. I've noticed you can get him on Amazon.
Okay,
but
you're easy to find if they.
Yeah. So anyway, all of this is a build up to a story where I got an unmatched person who had found me on Facebook and sent me a message. And I don't want, again, I don't want to name anybody in case they are.
And just to clarify for people, Neal means somebody who found him on Tinder, but did not end up matching him on Tinder, yet he received a message outside of Tinder from this person unexpectedly.
And I think this is what Steve Grows Weed in the comments means by what's it like dating with your post-wrestling celebrity status? So tell us.
Yeah. Well, that one experience, is a singular experience, was kind of weird because a person, like, I don't want to, I'm not in any way dumping on this person, but a person that was completely unknown to me said that they'd kind of found me, they'd found my profile on Tinder and, sent a message, saying, oh, I like wrestling too. I find it kind of funny. And so I'm divulging more than I probably should. And a lot of other stuff. And I let it sort of sit there for a couple of days, because often those messages go into like a quarantine thing on your Facebook Messenger. They don't just automatically appear. They, people that you're not actively friends with on Facebook already, it'll go into a separate little folder that you've got to find. And I wondered about replying, but I replied politely, and but in a fairly, I'm divulging more than I planned to, but in a fairly,
it's your rope to hang yourself with.
That's true, yeah, but in a fairly sort of closed off kind of way. I didn't, because we hadn't masked, because we hadn't, had any kind of real conversation or chat.
You weren't interested. Ultimately.
That's right way. And to be fair, yes, that is the short way of saying it. So but it was handled. I've navigated that situation.
So it's tough being desirable, isn't it, Neil? You've gone on 2 coffee dates now.
Yes.
So now you kind of got a sense of here's how the matching works. Here's how the initial just texting within the app works, and you figure out at least twice how to take it from that to now I'm sitting with another warm body in public. What have you learned as far as this is how you want to approach the process next, if anything?
A few things. One is that the first date was kind of a personal goal, a mindset thing. Right, I've achieved, something I set out to do. That's really cool. But we're sort of in the friend zone, so I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. And I think I divulged this to both of you in a group chat that the three of us had last week. I'm now kind of revisiting that and thinking, am I giving that enough of a shot? Is there maybe room for a second date there? Actually, on in retrospect, the first date is not always the be all and end all, and it was good, if not like just like fireworks going off or anything like that. So I feel like, and I think friends have shared this with me before, that the first date is often not at all the be all and end all, and it's not where you wind up. It's kind of, in fact, if you hadn't given that first date another go, you might have missed out on something good, something big even. So I'm thinking of revisiting that. That's one avenue. Another avenue is to kind of, and this sounds ridiculous, so please take it in the spirit in which it's offered, which is sort of ridiculous. There are quite a few matches, so what do I do about that? And the idea is to kind of, I don't want to juggle all these chats, so to kind of triage those matches into something where I can have a chat, at least a voice chat or a video chat, ideally, which would be a little more of a meaningful engagement with someone. And I think at that point, then decide, okay, this is worth an in-person meeting or driving for a while. There's someone I'm talking to at the minute, which is, it's not, it's a place called Armagh, which is about an hour's drive from where I live. So I'm wondering, is that worth, just on spec in the realm of a Tinder text chat doing? Or, and I think I know the answer, should we have a bit of at least a voice chat, if not a video chat beforehand, to see if that's a good idea? So that's sort of where I'm navigating. I'm feeling my way slowly but surely through this process.
Wade, would you typically do that, or was it just texting and then you met in person?
Like calling?
Yeah, like a call or a video chat. No, I'm saying initially before you committed to the in-person meeting.
No, I think I would. At the time, I would jump more just straight to the in-person interaction. I mean, depends on the person. Depends how maybe comfortable the other person felt. Depending on how comfortable I felt. But more often than not, I think I would just jump to maybe a straight in-person meeting, just because. I guess what I didn't necessarily feel like I needed the sort of in between step, and if I was going to experience what this person would be like, I always felt like I got a fuller picture maybe seeing them rather than talking on the phone. So, but you always opted to call on the phone, Jordan, right?
No, not always. No? But again, I did the dating app thing for years, and so eventually I think I realized I was meeting people in person too often, that either from the jump or a few minutes into it, I realized I'm not feeling this. And so I did prefer a video chat, if not a voice chat. Not all the girls that I matched with were interested in that. And some actually said they felt that was more vulnerable than actually meeting in person, which I thought was interesting. But my perspective was, even if we can hop on the phone for 5 minutes, that's enough time for me to assess, is there some sense of rapport or chemistry? Again, you can't really predict if there's going to be a physical or romantic chemistry, maybe until you meet in person. But at a minimum, I wanted it to at least be like a good hang, a decent chat. Again, because I had gone on too many in-person dates where like it wasn't that. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you're committing a half a day. Or sometimes, especially if, sometimes early on, I would offer to pick them up and it was a dinner date instead of a coffee date. And so now like the time and the money, and as soon as they open the door for me to greet them, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm not into this. For whatever the reason may be. They don't look like the pictures. Just the vibe is off. Mm-hmm. And now I've committed to them getting in my car, meaning that I'm going to take them back home. And it's dinner. Obviously, at least from my perspective, I'm going to pay. I wouldn't accept their money. Where I would prefer not to accept their money, at least. And I realized, the 5-minute chat could have led me to the conclusion that this probably isn't a good fit.
Right. Yeah, interesting. So it's not just physically that you were, I guess you wanted to filter out any sort of like deception. You wanted to make sure your personalities or at least had the potential.
Yeah, look, the girl could be like supermodel looks, right. But if the personality isn't there, if like the intellect or the emotionality isn't there, then maybe I'm not interested in like committing hours of my day to spending time with that person on a first date.
Yeah, I guess for me, I recognize that some of these things might be difficult to suss out in 5 minutes on the phone or even via text, or you could even say like on the first date, which goes back to your point, Neil. People get nervous, and people get nervous under like unknown situations, and they don't necessarily, they're not necessarily themselves, right? So I always wanted to at least take it to maybe the in-person step if I was interested enough, like via texting or like just even physically, to want to know, at least to get a better sense of like what that person would be like. But I also maybe didn't have so many like negative experiences that I was like dreading, the process of like maybe being disappointed. Even like I found the whole thing exciting, in the very like I would say rather limited time that I was sort of like actively dating. And I guess I wanted to ask you that, Neil, like even just before that first coffee date, was there this sort like can you describe maybe the energy you were feeling, for yourself as you were like just about to actually step back into that world physically?
Yeah, a little nervous, but in kind of a perfectly normal, healthy way. I think that's how I kind of rationalized it to myself. I wanted to make sure I had my beard was trimmed properly and like I was turned out quite nicely. And
did you wear a hat? I don't think I've asked you.
No, I didn't. No. I want to be clear about my baldness, and my profile pics are that way as well. For the most part, there's maybe 5 or 6 there, so people can get a good overall check. Because I mean, that is the barrier to entry. That's the barrier to a match on this app. That's what I really realized is the first thing you see is a full screen on your phone, at least, photograph of somebody. And if you're not feeling that, then you're not gonna swipe. So I thought, like, at least I need to be honest about as well.
Hi, Braden in the chat.
Braden. Yeah, and I can see that Chris actually, this is slight, Chris Leone's in the chat as well, and he's giving some honest advice. The percentage of matches that actually turn into dates isn't that high. So even when you have multiple matches, they're all worth pursuing because others will just fizzle out. And that's good advice, because I do have this, just a slight tangent. I do have this sort of bank of likes, the little number in the bottom middle of the app. And I'm not always swiping right on people that I feel like I ought to, because I don't want to have too many chats going at the same time. And that sounds a bit kind
Okay,
of
so this is where I will say, I think any advice that you might hear from like me, Jordan, or Chris Leone, you have to maybe consider that we're dating very differently from you, Neil. You know, like
yeah,
we are in at least to my knowledge, we were pursuing heterosexual relationships, in which I would say we were in the male role, and that is largely like the person pursuing. Neil,
yeah.
it sounds very much like you are the one being pursued. You know, you are the hot ticket item in your demographic for a lot of people, and therefore, I would actually suggest like you could turn these into dates as many as you would like to.
That's very flattering, Way, and I don't take compliments particularly well, but I will say this: within my kind of age bracket, it feels like, at least this is the sense that I'm getting, that there's dozens, if not scores, of people kind of within my age bracket, which is a dating pool, and it feels to me that's probably somewhat different. The dynamics of it are all very different for me than for heterosexual folks on the app, because the guy is expected to sometimes take the lead and all the rest of it. So I don't want to burn through what I feel is probably a fairly sizable number, but might not change that much. I don't know. I'm still finding my way. There are people who are drifting into my age sort of brackets that I've set all the time. There are people joining the app, I assume, as well, all the time. So I just don't know how many people are out there. No one does, but I'm comfortable with the pace that I'm at as well, because I've got the safety net of knowing that I was doing kind of just fine as a bachelor, and if that's where I wind up at the end of all of this, that's okay too. So it's a good place to start. I'm not desperate, which is, I think, a very good starting point.
And
But
you're
to your
happy with
point,
yourself. You like dating yourself, essentially. You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
But to your point about that first date, yes, I did feel nervous, but kind of comfortable too, because he and I had moved off the app and we'd swapped numbers and we were chatting, texting. Outside of that, we didn't talk. We didn't do the video chat thing, which I do think for some people, Jordan, you're a big talker. You like to chat. You like to talk. You will phone. You will cold call on occasion, just because maybe you're driving and you're bored, and you'll see if a friend will, including me, will pick up. An awful lot of people do not do that. I've realized, even in my age group, where when we were young, it was all about sort of the phone rings. You don't even know who's on the other end, the landline. You pick it up, is blah, blah, blah there. It might be for your mother, it might be for your dad, it might be for you. So I've been through that period of life where, then mobiles come along and you have to start, you don't need to memorize numbers anymore. All of those sorts of caller ID, all of those sorts of things.
To that point, it was intimidating as a kid, like grade school, before I had a cell phone. And, I had girlfriends, whatever that meant when you're 11. But in order to talk to them, you had to call their house and their parents would pick up.
Yeah.
And you had to ask for permission to talk to, I'm kind of glad that I experienced that, because it was one of numerous ways in which it forced us to be social in ways where now texting and texting directly or DMing, there's a lot less social friction involved in that.
Yeah, but I've come to realize that people even in my age bracket are way more comfortable with texting than with a call, and that's even kind of communication style is one of the things that is specified on Tinder. They may well have changed all of this since you guys were using it, but big time texter is the thing I see more than anything else. Better in person is one of them. I think talker, caller or whatever is another, or something like that. But big time texter is easily the one I see most of all. And I do get the vibe, at least, if not like the outright statement from people that they're much more comfortable with that than I think it'll be a bit of a hurdle to them when I do say to one person in particular where I'm thinking of doing this, hey, and I'm just asking a question at the end of the day. I shouldn't be too nervous about it, but hey, do you want to chat? Do you want to FaceTime?
But you're saying you are feeling some nerves about proposing that to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I just feel like most people are more comfortable with keeping it as a text exchange.
Maybe.
I'm just laughing at Steve's latest comment. I'm a bear, Steve.
So, yeah, Steve asked, is Neal considered a twink or more of an otter in his explain these terms, please.
I'm not entirely sure what an otter is. I'm the worst gay guy in the world because I don't attend Pride. I don't particularly know what a lot of these terms mean. And it's one of the reasons that Grindr was a real turnoff for me. You're like, one of the options is to specify your tribe, and that's what they call it. Are you a twink? Are you this? Are you that? I would be a bear, which is, I think I'm pretty lean and slim these days. I did put on quite a lot of weight over the pandemic period. Piled on the weight actually because I was doing no exercise and kind of just sitting at home all the time. But one of the hallmarks of the bear is being kind of hairy. And look at that forearm.
Oh my God.
Is this primarily is it primarily a body type thing or is it personality as well?
It's a physical type. Yeah. Right. Like a twink would be a boyish looking person, typically younger.
An otter, referring to men who are slim or slender framed, moderate amount of body hair, often considered a subcategory of bears. So then you may be an otter.
Might be an otter, yeah. Maybe Steve's more plugged into all of this than I am. Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, because a bear would be a big burly guy.
Yeah. But you do have otter features.
Yes. Semi-otter or something.
Do you find it a convenience or do you find it is it an annoyance having these sort of I guess I don't know, categorizations?
I don't like them.
Don't like them.
No. I think it's very reductive,
Yeah. It assumes something of who you might be, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it's a very subculture part of the lingo and sort of language of the quote unquote queer community that I don't particularly love, and that's, look, broad tent, the LGBTQIA plus community is a big tent and I support everyone. And I think, certain aspects of that community, certain people in that community are particularly downtrodden at the moment with various governmental regimes that are in place, not just in the States. Believe me, I'm not just being anti-Trump here. It's happening in the UK as well. So I'm very supportive of all of that, but I don't particularly identify with the sort of broad rainbow coalition community, if you like. That's just not who I really am. I'm a bit more kind of a traditional bloke in many senses. I'm into sports and stuff like that. So it is what it is. And a lot of the people I meet are the same way as I am. A lot, and a lot are not. And
just like some people prefer texting over a phone call. Yeah. But to get us back on track, you're saying that there is some nerves about suggesting a call to someone, but the request is based on your curiosity or desire for a chat.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, but what if he's not into it? Okay, then he's not into it.
Mm. Yeah,
but
I don't disagree.
Isn't that part of the dating process to get a sense of this is who this person is, and this either feels comlementary or congruent or not with me and my preferences?
I agree with you, Jordan. And I think it's particularly the case where in my short, like I don't want to speak as some sort of expert. I'm new to this and I'm still finding my way. But in my experience so far, where the profile is fairly scant, like there's not a lot there, and maybe the text chats aren't getting you a really broad sense of someone, and your initial swipe was based pretty much on looks and not much else, that's the avenue where I feel this is most probably going to be useful, what you're talking about, which is to just get to know someone a little better outside of the confines of, like you say, having to travel, having to make yourself look as good as you can, and maybe get it, all of the stuff that goes into the pre-date situation, as well as just going there and hanging out and maybe buying a meal and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So yes is the short answer to your question. I feel like, yes, it's worth doing.
And to Chris Leone's point, like there's churn. Now, luckily you're someone who lives in a location and at least presents through Tinder profile as someone who, it sounds like if you want, there's plenty of at-bats for you. It's not slim pickings right now for you. So at least I got to the point where, okay, we match and then you message and they're now messaging in real time. So you have a sense of this isn't like this back and forth of waiting, 30 minutes to 30 hours for each response. But okay, we're now texting. And sometimes within the first couple minutes, if I'm feeling any sense of connection, I might be like, hey, you want to hop on the phone? Because we're already like doing the text thing. And often it was, well, I don't want to say often. Sometimes it was yes, sometimes it was no. Mm-hmm. And others it may be like, now's not a good time, but yeah, like later tonight or tomorrow. But I think I got to that point of using that mentality of numbers game. There is churn. That's to be expected. So it's like, how can we get in and get out just to see if there's any potential for the next step in the courtship or the dating process?
Makes total sense. Mm-hmm. But do you think this is a fair thing to say, Jordan, that that's part of your personality? That's part of who you are. And therefore, if you get a yes to that, that's probably a one more tick.
Sure. And I had gotten feedback sometimes that I moved too quick. I'm too direct. Okay, but that's who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so and it's not for someone to say no, not right now, or that's too soon for me. That's not necessarily like a red flag for me. Everyone's different, and everyone's different on any given day. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, aren't feeling as confident or as energetic on a particular day. But part of the dating process is being who we are.
Yes. Although I guess, do you recommend showing 100% of yourself at the beginning?
What does that even mean, though?
Okay, so like the way you are with your wife right now, I would assume is like your 100% authentic self, right? Would you have been that person in your first interaction, or is there like, should we be at least progressing towards that from like a more I would say.
Oh, okay. So with my sense of humor, for instance, I may be a tad more reserved with a stranger than I currently am with my wife, because I have benefit of the doubt with my wife. She knows my humor is in good faith. Mm-hmm. I also have a better sense of her parameters of humor, what she finds funny or not, what she finds appropriate or offensive or not. So yes, if that's what you mean by 100%, then initially, no, you're not going to get 100%. However, and this is feedback I've gotten both in dating, but professionally and otherwise, with consistency, people say they find me as someone who is relatively authentic. And I think that's kind of what we're pointing to in this terminology of the 100% yourself. I do recognize that in certain ways, I give myself more permission to present my edges instead of trying to sand my rough edges in order to try to fit in or not rock the boat or to not be rejected in some type. But that's part of why I'm relatively comfortable doing that. I don't necessarily mind being rejected. If a match isn't a match, okay, great. Now I know. I don't want to waste my time and $100 on a meal, for instance. Yeah. I think, and perhaps this is some of what Neal is benefiting from as well right now. Neal says that he's been like mostly fine living his life as a single man. So he's not coming from a place of need or desperation. And whether we're dating or we're job hunting, when our energy is from a place of need or desperation, that's the quickest path to abandoning ourselves, abandoning our sharp edges, because the goal is to not be rejected. And then we often end up in jobs or relationships that may not feel the best or be the most sustainable because we weren't as honest at the jump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think what I'm gathering from all of this is, and including some of the comments in the chat, Surin has
yeah, let's read Surin's comment here. Surin says, when I was single, I'd have one good convo on apps, and if there was good banter, I would try to meet up for drinks, because sometimes I'd message for weeks only to meet IRL and find out there was no chemistry. But yeah, a phone call before meeting IRL sounds scarier for some reason.
That's interesting. If you're willing to call, I understand like how funny this may sound, given your feelings about phone calls. But if you're willing to phone in and explain that, if not, if texting is cool too. You sound to be what's the term, Neal? A big time texter?
Big time texter.
Yeah, CERN might be a BTT in our community. Like, I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. What is it about a phone call that feels perhaps more intimidating than literally meeting someone out in the wild? To me, that feels more vulnerable. It requires, at least for me, it feels like it requires more energy. I have to get dressed. Now I'm going out, so it's requiring more time. Whereas a phone call or a video chat with a device, at least for me, it's like I'm in the comfort of my own space, and it's easier to get out of it if you're not feeling it. But it's not uncommon for me to have heard what CERN is suggesting.
I'll speak for myself, because I don't disagree with what CERN is saying. I think for me, it's a phone call is not more intimidating than meeting in person. But by the time I am about to meet somebody in person, I think there's an expectation that I've already like either progressed the interaction to a point where I feel comfortable enough, or I've kind of like amped myself enough, prepared myself mentally to have that interaction. You could obviously mentally prepare yourself to have a phone call as well, but maybe it seems a lot more quicker, and maybe even a lot more casual than to jump from just texting behind a screen. I could take my time thinking about my thoughts. I'm not showing my face, to just having to be, I think, direct and live with somebody and not have those sort of like safety nets. So when we're just talking about maybe the early portions of like courtship, I can understand the vulnerability of jumping from texting, which is very safe, to the live conversation of a phone call.
Right, but meeting in person is a live conversation as well. Again,
but that comes after time.
I think for some people, the phone call, because it's a time-bound conversation, like from hello, you're having to like to and fro about something, whereas for some, it's actually less intimidating to be in a space with other people around, and kind of, you can have natural pauses that maybe, you can talk about the food, you can talk about the weather, you can talk about the environment around you. This is a nice place, isn't it? That kind of small talk, where I think of a call can be a little more pressured in the sense of, right, I'm speaking what I talk about. Now they have to speak And if you're unfamiliar with that person, perhaps this is just off the top of my head, but I can understand how that can be a pressurized situation with a stranger where, how do I start this conversation? What am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? Those are all considerations for an in real life sit down with someone as well. But I feel like in the environment of the world with other people around, and whatever, if it's raining outside, or all of that, whether the food is good, there's a lot more kind of avenues for straying off, the well. So
I get, maybe it's rare that I don't have something to contribute to a conversation. So maybe just like conversationally, I just feel a bit more comfortable. I had more than just a couple women tell me that they don't prefer the video chat, in part because they feel like there's less that they can control or that they like in how they physically present versus just being in person, and you get like a full natural kind of experience of their physicality.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of prep. I would say certainly for both parties, but I would say especially for women, there can be a lot of prep that goes into that first date. You want to make sure everything, I guess, if you care enough about the person, is to your standard of I guess how you want to present yourself. Whereas with a phone call, there might be a lot less time to prepare for, or maybe a lot less true incentive. Again, it's different for everybody, but it's all to say I can understand that perspective. And in fact, Seren has responded here. Seren explains, I feel like in person, you can take time to read body language. With the call, it's a you go, then I go situation. But yes, I am a big time texter usually. He also says the drinks usually help.
Yeah, a beer does help. I think oil the wheels sometimes. I like Aram's Aram. I'm sorry, I always mispronounce your name, Aram. His worst date story there in the chat as well. We've got a very lively chat today.
He says, Aram says, I want to speak with the person before. No need to dress up and meet up. That takes much more out of me. I did meet up once before, and she sat and played guitar to me in bare feet. Worst date of my life. That doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Aram should say it's now happily married with at least one kid, so you got there in the end, Aram.
What did she play, I guess?
Yeah, tell us, please.
Was it the guitar playing that turned you off, or was it the bare feet that turned you off? Yeah. Of course, we want to encourage interaction here. Welcome Gordon Brown in the chat, who says the art of conversation is lost.
I think to a sense, like I remember the days when, and I'm not just talking about landlines only. I'm not that old. Maybe you have to hold a separate receiver up to you and ask for the operator. I'm not that old. But even when mobile phones began, texting wasn't really that big of a thing. You were when mobile phones became like a mass market thing, it was still like you were calling people more so. I remember the days when you couldn't text across different networks. In the UK, it was O2, something called Cellnet, which is now gone, Orange, which is now gone. But anyway, you couldn't send text messages from one cell provider, as you would say in America, mobile provider, to another one. So Chris Leone.
Neil received the first ever phone call from Alexander Graham Bell.
Yes. Alexander Graham Bell famously floated the idea of ahoy being the what you should say when you answer the phone. This was on a TV show I saw the other day. But no, I wasn't around for that, Chris. How dare you? Anyway, all to say, like I've spent a long period of my life calling people and chatting on the phone. So I get what Gordon is saying. That people don't talk enough maybe these days. The art of conversation is it's just the convenience of texting.
People should be hosting their own podcasts where they talk about their day.
That's how we do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, let's go to some of these phone calls. Thank you very much for people that have called in. You have the link right now in the show description. I'm actually going to send it out one more time if people want to call in. Let's start things off here with Brandon from, never mind. He's not connected. If you actually want to talk, Brandon, you can hook up your devices. Let's go to Corey. Hey, Corey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, hope you're all doing well.
Hey man,
doing
good
well.
to see you.
Doing great.
Good to see. Oh yeah, a lot of stuff going on in this conversation, and you know, kind of the shift to the conversation about conversations, and how the art of it may be lost. You know, I was just having a moment not too long ago where I was realizing, I don't call my friends as often as I should, or maybe even want to. You know, I'm a person who works from home. There are some days where I feel like I maybe speak out loud, like 2 paragraphs at most, which is real fucked up. To me anyway.
You've already beaten your that daily limit right now in this.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm already off to a great start. But you know, it's funny. You know, I think of these days I'm almost starting to think of words the same way a lot of people think of like their daily steps, which, you know, some people say you want to get in like 10,000 steps a day. I maybe want to strive for speaking a few more words out loud a day. I think it helps me be a more personable person, you know. But even more than just kind of like my own personal like social skills. You know, I just yeah, I don't know what's going on in my friends' lives as much as maybe I should. It would be a good idea to call them every now and then. I feel like, and this is going to the anxiety of the phone call conversation that was happening. I feel like these days people almost find phone calls to be like a burden, like very intrusive. The day stops in its tracks because you need to answer a phone call. Everyone is kind of busy and consumed in their own lives. And so you're kind of making yourself the jackass by calling someone. It's almost like this sort of, and I hate to think of it this way, but it almost, the way I see people react to phone calls is like this, where calling someone almost seems like a conceited action.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes the other person will voice this if they are not used to getting calls from even close friends. Their immediate reaction when they see your name on their phone screen is, "What's happened? What's wrong?" You know, we really have gotten out of the way of chatting to our friends, I think, a lot, which is why we all have podcasts.
Yeah. I could definitely relate to what you're saying. Because I'm at the point now where yeah, frankly, like, I mean, if I just received a cold call from somebody, I don't know how I would feel about that, because I have to plan to have phone calls, as like my 2 co-hosts can attest to, you know, just for our monthly social catch up off air. It's something I look forward to, but it is also something I kind of have to like plan my day around. So I don't know what that says. Like, is it just a matter of like, is it a matter of us not being comfortable, or is it just a matter of like us having a better technology that allows us to, I don't know, maybe multitask in a way that allows us to do other things and then focus on calls at a time when we need to focus on calls?
But wait, I've cold called you a couple times, not just, hey, I'm bored, you up type energy, but like I had a specific question, and for whatever the reason, I just felt compelled to call, and you've answered. And I don't think the call lasted more than a minute or two, because I expressed the thing I wanted to express, and either it was information delivered or I got some sort of response from you, and that was it. And like, Corey, when you were talking about how like for some the calling, it might be perceived as in some negative way, part of me was like smiling, because sometimes I like to be a shit disturber, so I know that calling people is like poking at them, and depending on the relationship I have, like that can be playful for me. But I also know what it's like. Sometimes someone will call me and I'm like, fuck, I mean, I could answer, but I don't know what I'm getting into. It could be something that where they want more time, and then I have to be like, I don't have the time, and now I have to weasel my way out of it. So I also know what it's like to receive a call and be like, ugh. But my voicemail literally says something to the effect of, hey, sorry I missed your call. Texting might get you a quicker response. So I'm communicating that for one. But also it just depends on the mood or what I'm doing. So oftentimes people call, I may choose to not answer it, but I'll follow up with the text. And that's me basically saying, hey, I'm down to communicate this way. Just the call, not right now. But others called my buddy Alex. We hadn't talked in a couple weeks, and he called me and left a short message a day or two ago. And the way I didn't answer, I think I could have, I just wasn't in the mood to talk. But the way I perceived his gesture was, man, this guy fucking loves me. Like, he's thinking about me, and he was interested enough to connect with me voice to voice in real time than just a text. So a punchline is, it depends.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot. Look, texting, I think it's certainly not the end all be all or the only way to communicate. Sometimes, however, it is the more convenient, however.
Can I ask the group how you all feel about maybe what might be considered the compromise between the two, and that's voice messages via like the text group? How, do you guys use it? How do you guys feel when you receive one?
Never.
I use voice. Oh, sorry, continue.
Go ahead, Corey.
I use voice memos only if I have to tell anything that is like overly elaborate, and I'm very lazy. Yeah, usually it's just anything that involves more than like 2 paragraphs or like anything above 1 paragraph, maybe I will go to voice because I can more succinctly word it.
You're also trying to hit your daily limit.
Exactly.
2 paragraphs.
I would argue it's better to do that than like voice to text, because at least if you're just capturing your voice, it's the same amount of work by saying it out loud, but at least the spirit and the words are captured.
I have a friend who's very big on voice to text, and like strangely enough, it sounds more robotic than if he like maybe wrote out the same thing.
Yeah. I'll use voice to text if I'm driving, and it's ridiculous hearing me like actually dictate the voice to text, because I have to say like text Jordan Goodman. Hi Jordan, period. I'm about to go to my library, period. That apostrophe S, like I'm like talking like that. So yeah, you are talking like a robot as you're typing.
And then I'm just thinking, because my mom will often do voice to text, and I just accept that if I'm getting a text from my mom, half of it will not make sense just because of like an inaccurate translation. But then I'm thinking, why not just press the one button and just capture her voice speaking and then send that? I guess maybe it just hasn't been normalized enough yet. And then I wonder why.
Well, can I tell you why I don't really like the voice memo?
Yeah.
The convenience of a text is I can quickly read through it at my own pace, right? When I get a voice memo, I kind of have to sit there, and I'm sorry, like if you're one of my friends who might do this and might listen to this, I have some friends that leave like 2-minute plus messages. And at that
I've
point,
been guilty of that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, listen, Corey, again, the daily limit, I give you a pass if I get a 2-minute message from you. But it's like, now I kind of have to focus on this. Now I have to like drop at what I'm doing. I have to like sit here, listen to it. I have to remember what he's saying before I send my response. And that's why maybe I don't love it. But of course, there are situations where I could really welcome it, especially if I haven't heard this person's voice in a long time. And, you know, it's another tool, isn't it? Just to maybe express yourself.
And then I think that opens up another conversation around expectations with response time. So if you see, Wai, that I sent you an audio message that's 2 minutes in length, part of the annoyance for you or the work might be, fuck, I don't want to be dealing with this right now. But what if I had no expectation of you responding today?
Okay. Well, what if I didn't respond, period? Like, what if I just lost the message? Would you be okay with that? Would you not be offended by that?
Well, I don't know, but then I guess who knows if maybe the audio message was like what I was communicating had something that was a bit timely about it. And if you hadn't responded and I was looking for a response, then maybe I'd follow up with a text. I will say, however, so I did the collision review with Sino over the weekend, and Wai, I texted you maybe a day after, just asking for constructive criticism. I wasn't looking for a praise because I've done this twice in the past month. It's if someone's going to ask me to do something, especially publicly, I want to do it well, but it's a newer thing for me to do. I enjoy doing it, and I'd rather someone who I, respect, tell me like, hey, here's what could be better. So anyway, there, and this is rare for me, Wai. You didn't respond that day, maybe the next morning you did. There was parts of me like feeling regret for sending the text.
Why?
And I think it felt kind of vulnerable. And again, I don't exactly know why, but it felt vulnerable asking you for the feedback. I think part of it was I wasn't fishing for a compliment. I wasn't fishing for an attaboy. It was just I enjoyed it, and
it was more the subject matter, I suppose. Like, yeah.
And I think here's actually, as I'm working through it now, I think this is becoming more clear. Also, and I think I prefaced with, hey, if you listened. It wasn't, hey, could you listen and give me the feedback? So I think part of it was it certainly was a question that maybe required some thought from you, some effort. And there was part of me was like, fuck, I wish I didn't put that on Wai's plate right now. No. He's got a toddler. He's got he doesn't need this necessarily right now. I almost thought genuinely, maybe I'll unsend it, but then that might feel weird because if he read it already,
I've already seen it. I have a smartwatch now, so I get everything right away.
Right. So I think a lot of it was I just almost felt bad that I like created work for you.
Okay. I was in a very similar position to that last week and that was kind of the impetus for me talking about like kind of phone calls being perceived as like this way of inviting people to enter your bullshit. So like, and maybe this is very uncharitable considering the sort of impetus for me wanting to call my friend. But last week, my therapist, who he and I had been seeing each other for almost like half my life at this point. He had been he's been in and out of the hospital for the last, I'm going to say like 4 or 5 months or so. He gave me a call in the morning and said, I'm going to have to stop our sessions because I only have a couple months. And wow. Yeah, no, it was heavy. And like, I'm still kind of processing it a little because like, this is a guy who like, I've known this guy longer than like most of my friends, which is wild to think about. But yeah, so that was compounding with a completely other separate life thing that was happening. And I'm just like, I need to talk to someone about this. And so I wanted to call like my best friend. My best friend is a teacher that does a 4-hour commute to and from work every day. He is taking like grad school classes on top of this. The last thing he needs is me calling him and like burning away any extra time he could be making doing lesson plans or studying for one of his grad school classes. And I felt like very much like I have no mouth and I must scream.
So I feel like there are we have all of these different ways for us to communicate these days, and I think each one, to me at least, has its own place. Whereas I feel like texting, I think is great for casual, like, hey, like, haha, like LOL, like sending a meme, like shit like that. a phone call is, I think, you know, I guess great for something that is an emergency, in my opinion, or like maybe an extended conversation, you know. I think an email is also very good for like something that might demand a bit more time and effort in response. So that tends to be maybe the hierarchy of like how I like to use those things. Now, Jordan, like just to maybe go back to what you're saying, I received it. I was very happy that to receive that from you. Like I mean, you know, you're a friend who like wants my advice. So I was happy to receive it. It was also something that I recognize I wanted to put more thought into before responding, because I mean I took it seriously. I started doing that. I started like, you know, like just at the end of the night, like I was like kind of typing my thoughts. And then I typed enough to make myself realize I don't know what the fuck I could tell you, because I don't really know what even I'm doing, you know, when I'm doing a podcast. And I typed enough to realize that what you're doing is fine. Like, and that you will figure it out, you know, because I typed enough to recognize that I don't really have much authority to really give you advice. So that was sort of the interaction.
I'm glad you recognize that, because I think that was also baked into some of me feeling bad of what can I realistically expect as an answer.
Maybe there are some things, but like not enough for me to be able to like describe to you.
Sure. And again, I felt competent enough that I kind of know what I'm doing. Again, it's just, it's something that's so unpracticed that it just takes reps to find your voice and to find your perspective in that activity.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, it was a more unusual feeling for me to carry, and I would feel it, and then I would have to like kind of just shake it off, and it felt vulnerable.
Well, tells me it's something you care about.
Yeah, but also like I care about my friendship with you, and the last thing I want to do is to like be a burden. Certainly.
Oh, you weren't that. Not at all. No,
Well,
it was a good text to receive.
Thank you. Funny enough, I never feel that way with Neal. I'll sometimes intentionally call him knowing it's 5:30 a.m. for him.
Yes, can confirm.
KD in the chat room says voice messages work because you can ascertain tone. Sometimes with text messages, you can lose the nuance of the message and the recipient might take it the wrong way.
Agreed.
Very fair.
Yep.
Although emojis, I would actually argue are actually great to like suggest a certain tone, and often it could be like a lighter, sort of more comedic tone. But I think that, to me, emojis work in the way that like punctuation might work.
Yeah, I have a slight aversion to them. I don't know why, really, but sometimes when you're making like a dry, sarcastic comment and you just aren't sure if the person is going to understand it that way. But then if I put the winky emoji at the end, it just looks like I want to puke, and then I'll just not send it at all. You know? So yeah, I know what you mean. No way. I mean, they're certainly useful. In some,
I find that, and maybe this is my own worldview. Looking at it, I do find that a lot of emojis tend to, for lack of a better term, infantilize communication in a lot of ways. Like when I see like either, and most of the time I see excessive emoji use, it's usually like in a semi-mocking tone.
I guess depending on like the type of people that you might talk to. But sometimes I want an infantilized conversation, like especially if that's all I'm looking for, right? You know. Anyway, thank you, Corey, as always, for being a very consistent caller throughout our 50 episodes. We always enjoy our interactions with you.
Appreciate talking with you guys. Have a good one. Happy 50.
Thank you, Corey.
Katie also says, there have been times when I've had to call a friend after purely texting for a long time, and by the end, we're like, we should call more often, but never do.
Oh, yeah. That's a common.
Relatable, yeah. Aram asks, Wai, is John a caller? John has spoken about this often, where I think he feels very, very similar about like not wanting to burden either of us, and I would feel the same for him if I were to just kind of call once in a while. So when he does call, I know that it's something that he needs immediate response to. So he will only call when it's an immediate response. I sound like the most antisocial person in the world, and I swear I'm not. I like the convenience of text, personally.
I've had more interactions with John lately, because of book club and various other things, and way when you were on parental leave, more regularly doing the Friday show for maybe 4 in a row or whatever. And I really do feel like he, I think it can. I mean, you know him. You're a really old friend, so you can speak to this much more than I can. But my experience of getting to know John a little better is that I think he doesn't want to burden, twofold. He doesn't want to burden anyone else, so it's not like he's being unfriendly. And second of all, time management. How John orders his day is really kind of mind blowing. Like I'm shambolic and totally shambolic in comparison in the way that I organize my
what does that mean?
job.
What does being shambolic mean?
Well, not with podcasts, because they start at a particular time and say it's rewind to SmackDown. I've got to watch the show. I've got to take notes. I know what the structure is. I'm actually talking about my day job, which is what pays the bills and so on. With the work at home, and flexible working, I have deadlines, but they're not always end of the day, and they're not always within the 9 to 5 period. So I will very often feel much more productive 9 p.m., 11 p.m., sometimes even later than that. And we'll do the bulk of some written drafting work, which is sort of what I do, at really weird times. And that has not gone into my calendar at all. It's or a day planner. It's just, I'm feeling it. And I know that I'll get there in the end and I'll hit my deadline, but it's just well outside normal office hours. So that's interesting.
All right, let's go to our next phone call here. Brandon from New Jersey. We're going to try you one more time on the 50th edition of the Wellness Policy. Hello.
Guys, happy 50th, man. Can you hear
me? Yeah, too loud.
I'm sorry. That's on me. I can adjust that. Hi, Brandon. Hello? Oh, are you
too low?
We're going to whatever you just did, Brandon, can you undo it?
Maybe this could just be a text, Brandon.
Yeah. Okay.
Try again, Brandon.
Call us again, Brandon.
Unmute and then unmute.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. So maybe kind of getting back to it, Neal, like you've had your first couple of dates. Do you have a better sense of what you're looking for in dating, or are you still in the stage where you're just kind of open to experiencing?
Yeah, the second of those options, really. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for. And I think that's a good thing. If I had like this sort of type in mind, if I was looking for another wrestling fan who, likes science fiction and was really into Andor and all of those sorts of, like, I'm getting nobody, you know what I mean? So at that point,
do you want that? Do you want somebody who's just like you?
Probably not. Someone who can just tolerate that I'm into those things and I can tolerate that they are whatever, into a band I hate or something like that. That's not a barrier to entry at all. So I don't know what I'm looking for, is the short answer. I'll know it when I find it, I guess, if I do. And if I don't, again, that's okay as well. So I feel like I'm in a good spot from that situation. And I know we've gone 19 minutes, but we haven't really delved into you guys, which is sort of, I know we start these shows, we don't know how they're going to go, but I did want to kind of like ask you, Wai, for example. I listen to talk, I know that there's for patrons, there's an exhaustive conversation between Wai and John about parenthood and stuff, but are there any updates? Like how is Oscar and interacting with Lucas at this point? And,
yeah.
How's that going?
So at this point, like Lucas is 1 month, a little over a month. So he's just sleeping a lot and very demanding on my partner's schedule. But otherwise he's doing great. And Oscar is still the person that I think we're at least I am, you know, I feel I'm directing most of my energy to, because he's entering, you know, he's in the space between 2 and 3 where kids can be very, well, in his case at least, very rebellious, and he's learning the concept of autonomy. Therefore, he is exercising his right to say no to every request. So at this stage, it feels like I've just kind of gotten a handle on like the process of like, you know, taking care of a child, like, you know, how to whatever, like wake him up, change his diaper, like prepare his meal, shower him, bathe him, all of these things. Now the added difficulty is in doing it to a person who's saying no to every request, every step. So I'm having to exercise negotiation. Like I'm negotiating every in every sort of like step. And it's like a hostage situation every single step, and I'm the hostage, and the negotiator. And at times I like, you know, part of parenting is knowing how you can exercise authority and how to exercise force. And for me, it's about finding the appropriate balance of when is too much force. And I know, I know how bad that sounds. I'm not like, I will never be, you know, be physical with my child, but you have to be stern. Like, and we often, so I'm watching like, I talked about this with you. There's this show called Super Nanny from the UK, and it's kind of like Bar Rescue. I'm gonna show Super Nanny on screen right now, and listen, I'm not getting all my parenting advice strictly from a reality show from 2004, but she does have some good advice from time to time, and one of the things she says is to exercise your authoritative voice, and that means speaking in a way where your child can recognize, okay, mommy and daddy are serious, and I can't fuck around. All right, and that's hard to practice. It's just like Dune, where you know, you have to, like, you know, they talk about the voice, right, Neil? You know what I'm talking about? I forget what they call it, but it's like that. You whatever. Like there's a voice that you have to do, and it's like, it's funny for me, or at least like for me, to try to sound serious and like a boss, and my kid just laughing at me. Like he's just like smiling at me. He's not taking me seriously whatsoever. So that's been the challenge, and you know, it's a continued process trying to do it on very low sleep. But it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done as well. So that's the update.
Hell of an update.
Yeah. How about you, Jordan? What's the latest?
Only thing that I really feel interested in contributing, a couple weekends ago, I think a decent amount of people listening might be familiar with the band Turnstile. They're from Baltimore. They've been at it for some time. The spirit of what they do is rooted in hardcore, but they did an arena tour a couple years ago supporting Blink-182. They've played late night shows in the States, so they're very much like an alternative rock band. They put on a free performance in the city of Baltimore at a park right by Johns Hopkins University, and they did this at a different Baltimore park about 4 years ago when they released their previous record. I didn't go, unfortunately. I would say hundreds showed up, maybe upwards of 1,000. This, again, was a free concert out in the open, promoted a week in advance. And one estimate that was suggested and everyone's been running with, and I've been around large crowds enough to co-sign that feels right, was 10,000 people showing up to this park on a beautiful day in Baltimore City. And I've been doing the Baltimore music community thing in many ways, as a performer, as an attendee, as a promoter, etc., for 25 years. This may have been the most meaningful music community event I've been a part of in my life in Baltimore. Imagine 10,000 people coming together for free. And by the way, all of the energy was directed toward donating to a local nonprofit, Healthcare for the Homeless in Baltimore. Essentially, they provide wraparound services, mental health, toiletries and everything in between for those without homes currently. 10,000 people in 2025, no security pat downs, no check-in backpacks. In fact, very little security, no barricade as well. You can see it in the picture if you're watching on YouTube. There is no barricade between the crowd and the stage. And this is a hardcore band encouraging hardcore culture, meaning for almost the entirety of the set, even when there isn't distortion or drums happening, it's one person after the next getting onto the stage and then diving back into the crowd. The city got a little uncomfortable with it toward the end and asked the band or demanded that the crowd surfing would stop. And that was respected until the very final song when it was again encouraged. But again, 10,000 people, no security pat downs, a very aggressive type of being in community. And to everyone's knowledge, no major injuries, no major incidents. It was one of the most inspiring, joyous, chaotic, lovely cultural experiences I genuinely have ever been a part of. And the impact has resonated, at least from those, social media and in person and otherwise. Like, people are still talking about this, and it feels like for a lot of us in this city, it will be a landmark event that we will continue speaking about even decades from now. It really filled a lot of us up of what's possible, not only as an artist, but a resident of this wonderful city, of if it's the right band at the right time in the right location, like something really, really powerful can happen. And I also think a lot of people in this city might take that for granted. This doesn't happen in most communities throughout the world, where 10,000 people can have that like intense of a cultural community experience like that. It was fucking magical. So
sound like your Woodstock moment.
I saw
the original Woodstock, not
yes, yes. In that it was very DIY, we could say, and it was come as you are. There was very little barrier to entry with that first Woodstock, whether planned or not. And yet those comparisons, maybe in more of a joking sense, were made, but at the same time, it's like it was overwhelming to see the potential of a public park. And it was like, fuck, look at what we can do as long as there's enough organization and leadership. And that's what I mean.
And respect for each other, because it could have gone bad
of course
with a bad do.
Of course, I saw, like I was on the side, literally at the side of the stage where the sound people were. So I saw some of the people coming over with busted lips or busted, noses, looking for some sort of assistance in the form of a bottle of water or Band-Aid, something like that. But these are people that understand that comes with the territory, no different than if you are engaging in the art of pro wrestling and you get hurt. That's not necessarily something to like pick a fight over. And it's cool that a culture like that exists and could be showcased. And again, the narrative coming out of it was like no major incidents. And the article you got from the Baltimore Banner says 35K. I think they're closer to 50K now. Part of the narrative coming out is that there was this joyful, chaotic celebration and gathering of people, and nearly $50,000 was raised for a really worthy nonprofit of our fellow community members.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was very inspiring. It personally inspired me to be like, again, you can kind of do anything.
Thank you very much for sharing. And let's go to our phone calls again, where we try one more time with Brandon from New Jersey. Hey, Brandon, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Neil, congratulations, man. I I can't believe that.
Oh, fuck.
Perfect.
I can't believe it either.
Yeah, it is. It is unbelievable,
dude. We lost you again. I don't know if that's. I just see. I'm trying to lower his audio. I don't know if I'm doing it. Try one more time, please, Brandon.
It was hot. The audio, uncomfortably so.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's. In the meantime, let's go to Steve Grows Weed. Welcome to the 50th edition of the Wellness Policy. Where are you calling from, Steve?
Right now, I'm in front of a fuel tank. I just got out of my truck. I
Nice
changed
day.
careers. I'm a truck driver now.
Every
so
time
now
you call in, you have a different career. It sounds.
Yes.
you've now, because you're in uniform, I assume you've went
I am.
from looking kind of like Seamus to now kind of James Hetfield.
Oh, if I got that look now, okay, I'll take it.
You're more rugged now in look.
He's who I named my son afterwards. So
Is that right?
yeah, it's true.
What's
was
his
a
name?
huge
For whom the
medallion.
bell tolls?
Yes, that's it. No, fuel.
Cool.
No, he's another James. But yeah. Yeah, that's why you haven't been hearing much from me guys this last few episodes, because I've been busy with the career change and everything else. But yeah, I'm firmly in the new job and I'm pretty happy. So
Yeah, I
for
was going to
you.
ask how it's working out for you, Steve.
very well, very well. I deliver propane, so I'm basically driving a bomb.
Okay.
So somebody must trust me to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been pretty cool. I've been very happy in the new position. Life is good. And you know what it is? I go to farms a lot, right? So I don't really deal with people anymore. I deal with dogs. It's just dogs on these farms, and they all love me, and I'm a dog guy. So I just go to these farms and I hang out with their dogs while I fill their propane tanks. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. So the question needs to be asked. You are driving heavy machinery, ticking time bombs, perhaps. Are you, Steve Grows Weed, drug tested?
I am not, because I don't cross any borders.
And
the fact that like cannabis is legal in Canada, I think even if they did have you do it, like it would be just like the same. They can't really stop you from drinking as long as you're not obviously drinking on the job.
Sure.
So I think in that way I would be fine. So
cool.
But yeah,
cool.
the actual moniker of Steve Grows Weed has kind of taken a back seat lately. I've been very busy, so yeah, even my like channel and YouTube and stuff has been very light, because yeah, life's just kind of gotten in the way.
Steve drives tanks, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. Steve drives bombs or something like that.
Okay. Any thoughts on the 50th edition of the Wellness Policy before we?
Well, I'm very proud of you guys for getting this far. That's really awesome. Jordan, you had mentioned earlier that it was like a review podcast, or somebody had mentioned that it was like a book review podcast, which I thought was pretty cool. Because yeah, Atomic Habits I've read since then, and there was another one I read, and recently I picked up the Subtle Art of Not Giving a. Can I swear? I don't know. But
no, you can't. No.
All right. Well, you know where I'm going with that. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Damn. So, but yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I just picked it up not too long ago, and I always thought that was cool. But yeah, I've been happy with you guys, and like I love this show. This is one of my favorite shows on Post Wrestling, so it's really cool that you guys have kept it up and kept going this far. The addition of Neal has been great. This episode has been awesome. Like hearing Neal talk about things and stuff, you know. Like, yeah,
Thanks,
brother,
man.
get out there and date, you know, get some D. You need a little D.
Neal, did you ever think your dating life would be like the soundtrack to a man driving propane around Ontario?
Never.
Yeah, to Mennonite farms. I'm sure they'd be very approving of your life choices.
How could you even invent that way? You know, I think that's what you asked me is a sentence that's probably never been said before.
Yes, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, these Mennonites, they get weird when I put my hat on backwards. So yeah, I can imagine if they knew about your lifestyle.
I'm surprised they use propane even. It's not like
yeah. Well, there's apparently
fire
levels.
And logs.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like it's like some of them are the fire and log horse guys. Some of them it's like we could use machinery if it's for work, right? And like some of them drive cars or trucks, but they have to be black, you know. So it's like God's really a micromanager when it comes to these Mennonites. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting.
Thank you, Steve, as always, for the interactions with the community and for your contribution and for showing us what your life is like. I'm very fascinated by this.
Yeah, life's been. I mean, my life's been a mess for the last couple of years with all the job changing and everything else, and my wife's changing jobs.
Colorful,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah,
right.
But it's I've gotten here, and that's the thing. And I'm very happy with. I've only been doing this for about about 6 months now, but
we'll check in with you hopefully next time when you are still at this job, or maybe even at a job that you like even more.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna stick with this one for now. We'll see what the winter's like, because the dragging propane hoses through snow and stuff isn't always the most fun. So.
All right. Thank you,
I'm
Steve.
a little old. All right. Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Steve.
you, bud.
Take care. All right, we try one more time here to New Jersey. And Brandon, are you there?
Unmute, Brandon. Let's go.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, and we're gonna bear with the slightly louder audio. But how are you, Brandon? Nice to hear you.
It might be me because I'm on the road at work. This nice lady complimented me, saying I look good, and I was like, "What can this brown do for you?" And she laughed.
Okay.
While we're waiting, during technical difficulties, so I got her number, and but I think she might be looking for more than just like a coffee, Neil. So
wow, okay,
yeah. So we'll see what happens. But Neil, I'm so proud of you, man. Dipping your toes into the Tinder Oasis Sarlacc pit. It's a grind, man. It's a grind, especially. I'm a little older like you. No disrespect. 44, and yeah, man. I mean, there were some hits and there's a lot of misses, man. And like, man, there's a lot. There's a lot of like divorcees, and that they want more than just coffee. They want some more than coffee. I'll just put it lightly.
Yeah, and that's I'm open to all sorts of things. So.
Okay, Brandon. It feels like we're hearing from Kylo Ren about about his dating life. One last thought before we have to let you go.
I apologize, by the way. Sorry.
It's okay. It's worth it.
All right. What do you want to ask me? I'm sorry. I go ahead.
What is that? All you wanted to say from your call?
Well, no, I was gonna get to the crux of the matter. Like, be brave, be bold, have a good time. If it don't work out, try again. You know what I mean? Just shoot your shot, man. Because shooters are gonna shoot, man, and one of those shots is gonna hit, and you'll find you'll find happiness. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks, Brandon, for the life advice. I mean it. Thank you. Yeah, I feel pretty happy. That's the bit that is the big safety net and all of this for me. But no, I appreciate it. And I know
one thing, like I've hooked up with a person from Words with Friends. What do you think about that? It's kind of weird, right?
No, I love that for you.
How did that happen? I guess you're texting anyway. You don't even know what the person looks like.
Nah, it was just a profile picture, and she looked cute, and she was whooping my butt as everyone else does, seems to be in that game. And I just said, hey man, like your profile pic, you seem local. Wanna hang out, and we hung out. It was cool. It was a good time.
Nice.
Okay, amazing.
I've also hooked up on LinkedIn too. So, but that's the here or there.
All right, interesting. Well, thank you. Thanks.
The Discord, Brandon, hooked up with anyone in there?
Nah. Just I've gotten into trouble with Discords, but but anyway, congratulations on the 50th. 50 years is a long time. I wish you 50 more. Love you guys. You know that.
Likewise.
Okay. Thanks, man.
See you in September, in Toronto, maybe.
Oh yeah, right. AEW just announced.
Oh,
I
yeah.
look forward to that. All right. Hopefully I can talk to you when my ears aren't bleeding from the volume of the call. But thank you, Brandon.
I love you guys. Love you, Wai. Love you.
See ya. Bye bye.
Thank you, Brandon. Shabbat shalom.
Words with friends. Interesting. Never thought about that. Connection is possible anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Let's go lastly here to our friend Aram. Welcome to the Wellness Policy. Hey man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I was cleaning my car, and my wife wrote to me that she needed some carbonated drinks, so on the way to the store.
Carbonated drinks? What kind? Cola?
No, Fanta.
Fanta. Okay.
Yeah.
Fanta.
And
okay.
Well, I didn't want
orange.
Yeah, orange.
She wrote to you, like penned a letter?
No, on a text message. Like
she's a big time texter.
Oh yeah. Oh, especially when she needs me to buy stuff for her.
It's never a phone call.
Okay.
No, not at all. Never.
Tell me.
Yeah.
So tell me if I'm out of line, all right? But like I've had this when Neal was describing the gay tribes, I've had this image of a gay tribes pin that's been on my screen pretty much this entire podcast. It's really the only reference I could find. So that we've got Twink, Twunk, Otter, Cub, Bear, and Daddy. Now I only bring this up now because Aram I've known for a long time. And I've seen your growth. I've seen your change, right? I would say maybe, I don't know, maybe you started as a twunk. Where's Aram these days?
Oh shit. I have no idea.
Well, like how would we categorize Aram?
Like a daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm mostly a serious family man. And yeah. I know it's funny, but that's why I need to make so many jokes on the Discord.
I just laugh because I don't know if like daddy in this definition isn't necessarily you need to be a serious family man. Maybe you do. I don't know.
So Otter looks like a ravishing Rick Rude. I wonder if the mustache is part of the Otter presentation.
Right. I like the look. Aram is all I'm saying. A bit of grays coming in, like it looks cool.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations with the baby, Wai.
Thanks, man.
I can't imagine how cool it must be to have 2 kids, young kids.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool, and it's like having one, but like double.
That's
profound.
Like being on the wellness policy.
Yeah. Aram, have you ever sat down? You're always walking when we see you.
Yeah, well, that's because when I sit down, I fall asleep. I'm always on the run. I also need to do stuff, and I can sit down, but it's more in my spirit to walk and do stuff all the time. And
what's your step count? What's your daily step count?
Oh, I don't know, but I was just in Milano the other weekend with my brother, and we counted on the telephone. It was over 30,000 a day.
Damn,
30,000. That's a lot of steps.
That is a lot.
You used to train pretty seriously in MMA. Aram, I remember those days, and do you still do that as well? Do you keep your hand in at the gym?
No, and that's probably why I'm so eager to walk, and I have a smartwatch too, so I use it a lot to get motivated to get up, and not when sometimes it's message you you've been sitting down too long. So that's because I drive to work, and I take care of people, and I sit a lot down at my work and there. So whenever I can use my body, I will. And Ray can probably knows probably how still you'll get when you get kids. My kid is 11 now, so I go play football with him in the yards all the time, and basketball, just to get moving, because I don't know about you, Wai, but when it gets 8, 9 o'clock, I'm tired. I don't have the energy to go to the gym anymore.
Wai starts his work day at 8 p.m.
Oh, really?
yeah. So I try to peak for that. So I'll have like a coffee, like honestly at like 4 p.m. In order to get that. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Oh,
30,000 though. That's like more than half a marathon that you're doing every single day. That's incredibly.
No. That's when I'm on vacation. That's not daily.
Okay.
I'll do 10,000.
Okay. That's still very good. Yeah.
I'm waiting for that light bulb above your head to turn on, like you got an idea.
Is it? Yeah. Well, it's the 50th episode. Like, I feel I need to like compare Neal to some bald white guy. Neal, have anybody told you look like that actor Stanley Tucci?
No, I haven't had Stanley Tucci. I've had Pep Guardiola from you, Aaron, frequently, which is a compliment. A lot of ladies very fond of Pep, so I don't mind that one. Some of the others,
Tucci, why? Just because he's bald?
Don't ruin my joke, Wai. That's my.
Well, you're an interesting guy. Oh yeah, I kind of. Can you take the hat off? The Robert Pearson hat off?
I'd rather not. But Stanley's even older than I am, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I say it myself, but all right, okay. Well, thank you for calling, as always, Aram. Always.
Yeah, and I feel like it's I like Rosie Steve. It's the best show on Post Wrestling. It's the first show I ever called into, and yeah, you can all thank Neal for that. If you're, I don't know if you want to thank.
I don't know if Aram actually listens to any of our other shows. I think this might be the only show Aram.
No way. I listen to Review Smack. When Jordan is on the other shows, I listen to that. I listen to like that. You had like a show where you talked about masturbation and waterbeds. I don't know what it was about, but
No, that was not my show. That was Jordan's show.
That was Detox, probably.
Detox, yeah. And the month you were away, I listened to all the Neal Flanagan shows. He was like on every part.
So only when I'm not there, you choose to.
No,
right, that's fine.
No. I do. It's just only here I'm doing feedback. Like
I don't know what to do with this, Sam. I think you're taking the piss out of me, but I also think you're complimenting me, so I'll take it in both ways.
Neal, there's something to take away from this episode, and it's that you are a very desirable voice and personality in many communities. So
I'll leave. I'll ask you with this before I leave. Do anybody of you eat hummus with Pringles? Okay. Take care.
No, yeah, we're not.
I can give context to this.
Thanks, Aram. Appreciate it.
Aram is a big fan. Aram is a big fan of a food health guy on. He's on TikTok. He's on Instagram Reels and so on. He's called Eddie, and he walks around supermarkets picking up stuff and telling you it's shit. This is shit. This is poison. This will kill you. Wise the fuck up. Make your own food and all this sort of thing. And he sent me the latest one, which was on Pringles, which is poison. And I told him that I occasionally use Pringles as a dip because the shape of them is good for that, into hummus. And he was appalled at this. Absolutely.
It is unique. I don't know if many other people have ever done the same. It's just, I guess I consider hummus as like, it's got a thick consistency. Pringles are kind of weak.
You do break, yeah. When you
I also consider them like of two different worlds. Like hummus, maybe I guess more Middle Eastern.
Sure.
Pringles, just maybe a product of like manufacturing, and it's just one of the more soulless snacks that exists without any sort of culture attached to it.
Yeah.
But that is fusion, isn't it? We're blending one with the other.
Sometimes
soul is
carrot sticks. That's a little more acceptable.
Carrots. Yeah. Okay.
Soulless snacks. I like that term.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, a pleasure talking to the both of you for the past 2 hours on the 50th edition of the Wellness Policy. I think this was a podcast worthy of the number 50, a nice, well-rounded number. Learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about Jordan Goodman, and I certainly learned a lot about Neal Flanagan, in addition to a lot of our great callers. Any closing thoughts from either of you on the past 50?
I like doing this. I'm glad I do this. So thank you to both of you, obviously, but for those listening, and I know there are a handful that have listened to maybe all 50. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the two of you for bringing me on board. I love this show. It's still the one I quote first when people ask, what I do with my hobby, that is podcasting and contributing and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. This has been a tremendous episode, a lot of engagement, a lot of good calls, and I think if we're ranking all 50 episodes, it's got to be up there, hasn't it? It's top 10 at least.
22nd, maybe, out of the 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Much more mid.
Yeah.
But
that's okay.
Top half.
Sure.
All right.
We'll get them next time.
No, yeah, next one will be good. Whenever we come back. So probably a month from now. All right, everybody. Talk to you guys later. Join the Discord. postwrestling.com/Discord. Bye-bye.